All right, we're recording. And we are live on Twitter. Welcome back to the RINO podcast, episode 23. Happy Father's Day, everybody. How are you, Caitlin? How is your Father's Day going?
My Father's Day is good. My dad lives in Kentucky, where I'm from, so I don't get to see him, but I always call him.
That's good. Did you send him a card?
I usually, what I do. So
you didn't send him a card.
No. This is even better than a card. Okay, let's be real.
All right. So I'm listening.
Okay, my dad and I both like to buy books, and we like to buy vintage books. My mom hates that we both like books because my mom is very much a math-oriented person and does not like reading. So I like to buy my dad a vintage book every year, and he usually, when he comes to visit, I usually give it to him because I think it's better than putting it in the mail, because I always am weird about like vintage things being put in the mail and all that stuff. So I always get him a vintage book, or like try to find like a first edition somewhere of something related to history that he would like. So
good. That's good.
It's something my dad likes, and it's also something that pisses off my mom, which has always been an inside joke with the family.
I don't think your mom your mom doesn't have any ground to stand on that. She can't.
No,
was she mad at books? Sorry, Mama reading. Caitlin. Mama Caitlin's off base on this one. I mean, you can't be mad at books. Like,
it's so funny. She really does. Like, she'll threaten to be like, "I'm going to throw away all your books."
Well, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yeah.
To the godfathers, to the grandfathers, to all the fathers. And yeah, I can say I saw this, believe it or not, on Twitter. The greatest bit of advocacy you can do is to become a parent.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And fatherhood and marriage tames men. You know,
yeah.
I can remember instantly when, my wife was pregnant, we were having our daughter, and like the switch went on, right? I became like, oh, okay, I got to be the provider, the protector, it wasn't like I thought about it. It just sort of happened. It happened instinctually. And I think this is really important for men to realize, as we've learned from history and the centuries of just looking at what has worked and what it hasn't worked, that in order for society to be stable, young men have to understand this, that you grow into fatherhood and responsibility, which is interesting. I mean, it brings up this kind of philosophical thought that back in the 50s and 60s, when the oh God, who's the guy who wanted to destabilize everything? He was a communist.
Saul
Alinsky.
Yep.
So the way you break down a functioning society is you destabilize the core unit of that society, which is the family. So unwed mothers, absentee fathers, encouraging that and making that seem in vogue or something that is something to be desired in our society. And I think that has led to a lot of the problems that we have in America today. I was reading some millennials were complaining about not being able to afford a house. My first question to them is like, are you married? Because I was broke until we got married. I was just spending money on fun things. I had fun with my money, and I wasn't probably ready to settle down. Also, because the lifespan of human beings has been extended over time. But I don't think I was ready to to settle down until I did, when I turned 30. And if you're wondering why you're broke and you don't have a home, the first question you should ask yourself is, are you married? So you and Mr. Caitlin, how long have you been married?
9 years.
That's great.
We don't have a house yet. We're still renting, but we're savers, so that's what we do. We're looking but we don't have a house yet. But yeah, no, I mean, marriage forces you into a position where you have to take care of each other, even if you don't have kids yet, because Mr. Caitlin and I don't have kids yet. But yeah, like it forces you into a position where you have to think about another person.
Mm.
And I think it's good for society. Like I think that millennials like me, dirty millennials, not getting married or not having like kids eventually is not good.
Well,
We'll,
a lot of the financial struggles that people talk about, it's like, it's, if you even go back one generation to the boomer generation, you know, our parents' generation, right? Early boomers and late boomers.
yeah,
You look at the statistics and it's like, well, when did they get married? And they got married, you know, earlier on. Now you got married in your early 20s, right?
yeah.
Nine,
I was
9 years.
23.
Yeah, 23. That's, you know, maybe, I guess it's cultural depending on where you live in the country, but if you're on one of the coasts, that's like unheard of.
Yeah,
To
I
get
know.
married that young. And I even said to myself, I was like, I'm not getting married that young. One, personally, I wasn't ready to, but also, um, you know, I was a mess, right? And I was in debt up to my eyeballs in student debt and credit card debt and all the things, and spending too much and not being responsible. Um, but you know, you and Mr. Caitlin are probably in a decent financial position, saving up, right? Most of
Well,
your
yeah.
yeah.
So I am actually one of the lucky ones because my parents sat me down when I was a sophomore in high school and was like, this is how much money we have for you for college. So you're going to have to pull the slack on the rest of it. So you don't have to take out loans. And if you don't, like, you're going to have to take out loans. And this is what it means. So my parents are really good on teaching that very good life lesson. And I hustled. Like I didn't have any student loans going into my undergrad. And so I graduated with zero debt, which is
Mm.
probably one of the greatest gifts that my parents could have given me. And teaching that life lesson of just saving and doing that. So yeah, and Chris
Yeah.
is like, or my Mr. Caitlin, I don't want to really say his name. Um, Mr. Caitlin's a genius, so he was able to get full ride scholarships in all of his educational
That's great.
degrees.
That's great.
Yeah, and he's very humble about it. But yeah, that's he graduated with no debt either.
Yeah, well, I graduated with some debt. Not the massive six-figure amounts you see now. It was about 40,000, give or take.
That's
It,
not
it
bad.
it took me some time to pay
Comparatively,
it.
not bad.
Well, it was, I got financial aid and some, and I paid off a lot while I was in school. I took some loans, and like the aid packages got better as I the further along I went. So it was reasonable. But
Yeah,
but this also, like, so the idea of being single and not settling down earlier on has this ripple effect that we don't think about, that a lot of the left doesn't think about either. Even as conservatives, we don't think about. And if you look at some place like Boston, where in the 70s and 80s people were getting married in their early to mid 20s, they would then cohabitate, right?
right,
They'd share an apartment together. Now, as time went on, that doesn't take place.
right.
So what does that do to the housing stock? A
Yeah,
single person renting a one bedroom apartment, you know, you're automatically cutting in half each single person that rents another one bedroom apartment or studio apartment, rather than sharing it with your husband or wife.
right,
So that automatically drives up the price of rent. People don't think about those things. There's this natural cultural occurrence that affects the housing market. So if all that rental stock is being taken up, and you've essentially split the population from in half, or doubled the population of renters, because each unit, you know, is for a single person, that has a massive effect. Has a massive
right.
effect on you know, the rent. So not everything is as cut and dry as, you know, capitalism is evil and we need to build more housing, or we don't need to build more housing, and don't need more luxury housing, and all of these things that the social engineers in the government class want to enforce on us. So,
Right.
so happy Father's
Well,
Day,
the
everybody.
issue, right? The issue isn't capitalism there. The issue
No.
is a social question, right? Whether or not like men and women, or even two people households, need each other and can cohabitate. Like the 70s really killed that idea socially, and it, you know, made waves into the 90s. Like that's one of the things where, like, when you have these type of social questions, you have to look at the long game, not the short game of what the gains are and what could happen, like the detrimental effect. I mean, yeah, it's
But
a big problem.
do we even see it? I don't even know if we're looking for it because it's just sort of happened.
What,
Like delaying marriage, right? It was just something that
yeah,
said like people like I guess during the 80s and 90s it more came about, right? It started happening in the 70s, but in the 80s and 90s where people like wait to get married. Wait to get married. Maybe because they were going through divorces or something like this, but we can pause if you want. If you're getting interrupted, but we can go on to topic number 1 if you'd like as well.
we can go ahead and go on to topic number 1. I took care of that. No worries.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
All right, and topic number 1. No worries. Topic number 1 for everybody at home who's watching this live on Twitter is a very interesting article that popped up, a little hubbub of normal idiocy. Let me see here. So I got to go to the Zoom, and I'm going to share the screen. Do that and that. So the audience at home can see. This was an article written by Marcela Garcia of the Boston Globe. Why the colorism problem of In the Heights matters. It's hard not to see the erasure of dark-skinned Afro-Latinos from the movie as whitewashing. The exclusion also highlights the blatant colorism among Latinos. Marcela goes on to pontificate about how there was not enough darker-skinned people in this movie. She also goes on to say that she, I guess, what I want to say, fully admit she's. I marked myself as. Do I pick white? What does white Latina? So she totally engages in this very convoluted race analysis of herself and race analysis of the film. Needless to say, I think we can stop sharing at this point. It's everything you'd expect, right? It is everything you'd expect from the left. They have no other ideas other than racial. I've heard a few different terms that are being coined here. Racialist, racial, not integrate.
Racial essentialism.
Essentialism, right. Racial essentialism. And I want to say one thing. They are robbing our lives of fun and enjoyment.
Yeah. I mean, they're making it like it's frustrating because you have to see it through this lens all the time, right? And it's not that people are in bad faith doing this. Like, I can't imagine Lin-Manuel doing this in bad faith. Clearly not. Like, he's creating a movie where it's his passion, it's his art. I've seen Hamilton, like that musical is like one of the, most fun that I've ever had at a play. Because it was very
right, wait.
Whoa, I'm not a Hamilton girl. It was a fun play, a fun musical to go see. Okay. So I just think that this is just nonsense. Like, I don't think that he meant anything in bad faith. I think that they're really trying to pick and nitpick to find something bad.
Nonsense is the correct word, right? Nonsense is the appropriate word. It does not make sense.
Right.
The breakdown of all of this is this is spawned. You can draw a direct line from intersectionality to this is the result of intersectionality, where everybody is ranked. There's this pyramid of hierarchy of victimization and oppressor and oppressed. And everything must be looked at through this lens. That is what the larger, we can get into critical race theory in a second, but this is what intersectionality breeds. This constant fixation and this focus on race and skin color. Now imagine what these actors are feeling. These actors like busted their ass to produce this movie, to give it their all, to provide a great performance for those who are interested in it. And it's like, you have these people, Marcela being one of them, you're not dark enough. You're not dark enough. Like, this is idiocy. This is pure idiocy. And then you have Bill Maher, liberal to the till the extreme. What did he say exactly?
He said that Lin-Manuel did not need to apologize for
Right.
this at all, in which I actually have to agree with him. He created he came up with a screenplay. He created this musical. I've not seen it yet. I saw the ads for it. It seemed like it was fun. I will probably eventually watch it sometime. But yeah, he doesn't need to apologize. Like it's becoming a thing where it's just forcing people to constantly apologize for their art.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that we're celebrating anymore. It's something that's just constantly cutting people down. And so at that point, if it's just constantly cutting people down, what's the point? Is there no forgiveness? Is there no moving on?
But there's no there shouldn't be even forgiveness for anything. This is something that they do. They just keep picking and pushing. Again, they're robbing the fun and enjoyment out of life. They really are,
Right.
because this
Fun and vampire.
there is no bottom to this hole. There's no
Right.
bottom to this hole. Like if the cast was all black and all of you got their little communist cabal. It was a Soviet. I think that there's actually a term that the Russians had that was in charge of stuff like this. But
Right.
if you had that committee sitting in front of and looking at pictures of all the actors and this and that, and they put it out, there would be somebody who would say, well, it's not this enough. You didn't have enough transgender representation in the film or something like that. This is insanity. It doesn't end. This is a bottomless pit of misery that these people are subjecting us to. And they can't defend it. They can't defend it.
No.
Marcela will she'll probably watch this episode, and I hope she does, because there is no debate amongst these people. They don't want to hear the other side. They just will come up and spin some more lies and nonsense to cover this and push this agenda. This is all agenda-driven commentary that does not better the human condition at all, and in fact makes it quite a bit worse. And Lin-Manuel Miranda, okay, I don't like him.
I can understand not liking him, because the woke stuff is a little extreme, and what he did to Mike Pence was sometimes can be considered a little bit too much. I get it. I get the not liking of him. I just think that forcing people into a position of constantly having to apologize for art and all of this other stuff is just not a classical liberal point of view. No. You're being an authoritarian at that point.
At that point, he should have just said, no, I stand behind these films. I stand behind my actors. By the way, he totally throws his entire team under the bus with this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't. It's like, well, wait a minute. What role should have been swapped out for another person based on not their talent, not their ability to sing and dance or perform and act, but just purely based on skin color? Those people auditioned and earned their jobs. And that's what the idea of America is about. Okay? Right. So we can move towards a better society. This makes everything worse. It's not. It's it's indefensible. It's really indefensible what Marcela piling on to this woke mob, and this is actually the woke mob, because Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't do anything wrong.
No.
No.
And this movie has been on the. I mean, they knew that this movie was coming out before COVID. I think they held it because they wanted to make sure it opened in theaters. Mm-hmm. Because I remember seeing ads for it before COVID. Coming out last summer. But yeah, again, why are we having to apologize for this? This is the same argument Bill Maher did. He's Lin-Manuel is promoted diversity and all of this other stuff and equality. He's been good on that front. So why are you forcing him to apologize because of one thing that you think that he needs to be put on his knees for? It just This is not, it's a constant retribution. It's just not, it's not liberal. Let's be honest about that. This position is not liberal. It's just authoritarian. And progressivism is not always liberal. It is, it forces people into this authoritarian position. I just think that, with something that's artistic like that, what is the line?
It's purely, it's subjective. Art is subjective. I said I don't know Lin-Manuel Miranda, but I've seen what he's done. I haven't particularly liked it. I think Hamilton was corny. I like, the hip hop I like is, from, not washed through a lens of the founding fathers and dance. I didn't particularly like it, but I don't know him. I'm sure he's a nice man. I'm sure from whatever I hear, I've read about how he is as a person. He's a very good person. So
yeah, and why cut him down? Like, there's no reason for that.
Well,
do you have to assert your opinion in everything to cut people down and put them on their knees and force an apology? Like, you don't have to do that.
Why they do it is because they'll never be satisfied. This is the problem that people really need to understand, and more people are waking up to this. That there is no level of wokeness that can satisfy this mob. There will always be something else, and you even see it in the tweets of like Elizabeth Warren and Ayanna Pressley. It's like, as soon as something happens, they're like, but we cannot stop here. We must keep going. And they say it right there. They're like, okay, this will never end. And this is, you learn from history, and this is what the communists did. You just need the perpetual revolution.
Right.
I mean, the 1919 was the communist revolution in Russia. They were still talking. Right?
Yeah, so I think Lenin was released into Russia by the Germans to force the Bolshevik Revolution. There was a minor revolution before that, but yeah, that one was actually the good one.
1917 to 1919 era.
And then the Bolsheviks went crazy. But what they went crazy, and what they do is they put out this mass propaganda where they want to force this position. It's very persuasive. It's evil because it pits people against each other, and then it becomes an authoritarian revolution.
The underpinnings of this are all there because it's just perpetual. My point was, in the 50s they were still talking about the revolution. Like, they're still it's in the process of the revolution. The revolution actually never ends.
The revolution never ends. I mean, if you look at communist regimes back in the past, the Soviet Union came to fruition, but you want to spread the word of communism. Right. So and you want to spread the propaganda and the constant racial cutting down and, the class warfare kind of bullshit. But in the United States, we have a mass communist following for a long time, and they're still saying the same sort of stuff. It's kind of interesting how they keep on doing this, and they try to force you in a position of apologizing. I'm not getting on my knees for you. Get over yourself. That's kind of been my position all along.
If the audience wants to go out, there's a very interesting movie. I think it's for free online somewhere. You can find it. It's called Reds with Warren Beatty, 1983. I think Danny DeVito was in it too. Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, about Reds. It was about Eugene. I forget his name. Eugene O'Neill. I think it was about Eugene O'Neill, or the character was in that. But anyway, it's about the Communist Revolution, and these authors going back and forth from the United States to Russia. And because at the time in the United States, this was actually a real thing. There was anarchist groups going on. We were having to deal with,
way back in the she was an anarchist, a communist one, or a socialist one, I believe.
Yeah. So, but my point is, bringing that up is, go back and listen to the lines that the actors were saying, and the political points that the characters are making in that movie, and it's all it's identical to what you are hearing today from AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Elizabeth Warren, and a lot of them, Bernie Sanders, the whole deal. It does not change. And the perpetual revolution leads exactly to where they always do. Authoritarianism, it never ends. And to Marcela Garcia, if I've done you wrong in categorizing and commenting and providing commentary on your piece, you are welcome to come defend yourself on this podcast. I have a feeling you won't, but you are welcome to. You have an open invitation, because what you're doing is not only robbing the joy and fun out of life and art, but you are making our society worse by this constant fanaticism on skin color and race, and it totally needs to end. And people are starting to wake up to that fact. They're pushing back. for sure.
Yeah.
Topic number 2. Our old friend, Jim Lyons. So let me read this. Set it up. Okay. Yesterday, from the Mass GOP. At the beginning of the week, a Globe columnist issued me an ultimatum. Answer these questions by Friday in a full and forthcoming manner, or else. Yeah, I don't think that was or else. Here's a few of the esteemed columnist's question. Does Jim realize that the First Amendment is a protection against action by the government to curb free speech or the free exercise of religion, and that it is not something that applies to a private organization? Okay, that's kind of correct. Does Jim understand that given the intent, purpose, and application of the First Amendment's protections, the state committee controversy isn't properly described or framed as a battle over free speech or the free exercise of religion for this reason? It is not the government pushing for her resignation. Rather, it is members of the Massachusetts Republican Party. So far, all correct. Here's Jim's response. I'll let these, quote, questions, unquote, speak for themselves and remind the Democrats that their public relations shop at the Boston Globe their public relations shop at the Boston Globe, once again, we do not yield on matters of free speech, free expression. Okay, so that's his response. I'll let these questions speak for themselves. Stupid. They're completely legitimate questions.
They're
completely legitimate questions, Jim. Like, the government isn't involved here. Like Deb Martell can say whatever she wants and she's not going to get thrown in jail for it. She can believe whatever she wants. She's not going to get thrown in jail for it, dummy. Her behavior and what she's saying isn't acceptable to our group, and we're calling her on that. And you're hiding behind this excuse of free speech. Free speech doesn't mean you can say whatever you want and you just get to be held responsible by the people around you. And we do live in a society. There are certain things and certain acceptable opinions that we want as a part of our organization. So right. The questions do speak for themselves, you dope. And you wrote it in an email to raise money off of it.
Yeah. Okay. So I have 2 things to say on this. I think what a lot of Republicans do is confuse the classical liberal value of freedom of speech and being able to live in a society where you can say whatever you want, not have the government go against you. Doesn't mean that you have a consequence when you say something and then you act poorly about it afterward. And that's what happened, right? Like we don't have a problem with what you really said. And yes, I mean, we do, but it was more or less your actions afterward that were just not becoming as a leader. And that's what's the real drama here.
Well, for Jim, yeah, but no, I have a problem with what Deb said.
Well, I mean, her behavior on it was just not great at all. Like there's a bigger issue with that. She said it, and then her behavior was also really, really poor. Mm-hmm. So Jim, again, like, the government's not coming for you. Like, that's not the problem here. So I think the Globe writer likes to push this like First Amendment point to kind of be like a gotcha in almost a sense. But at the same time, like, we have a state chairman of our Republican Party that's just not acting great and kind of confuses freedom of speech for freedom from consequence, which is not a thing. So yeah.
And also, you're kind of going to the same well for all these people who you're raising money from. Like, this isn't going to work, and you're bringing this back up. Like, it was kind of dead earlier this week, and then yesterday you sent this email.
Right.
And then I'm like, I'm gonna respond. I mean, because it's too stupid it's too stupid to just leave out there and not comment on.
I think, Jeff, you and I agree on this, that we talk about many issues that are happening in our country, such as inflation, housing prices, gas prices. These are all things that affect the average American's wallet. There are things that are being pulled on with voters. We're seeing Republicans win in Louisiana 5 and blocking the Democrats out in Texas 6. In Georgia, Cobb County had an HD district that the Republicans turned out in massive whips. That means that the suburbs are trending back to the Republicans, and this is probably based on what they're seeing in their wallet. So what I don't understand is why the Massachusetts GOP is fundraising off of internal drama rather than focusing on what the issues of the American voter want. We don't care about your drama anymore. It was over and done with. We want to see fundraising emails where it addresses Joe Biden's inflationary issues that he's not handling, because people see that difference at the supermarket. They see that difference at the gas station. So why is the Massachusetts GOP focusing on stupid bullshit rather than focusing on things that are really affecting people?
Children. He's a child.
I'm sorry.
It's just temper tantrum nonsense. It's unseriousness.
I get these emails, and I read them and I'm like, I'm not giving money to something that's not going to fight for, my right, gas prices. Yeah. I'm not fighting for tax increases because it's not my fault that the government can't handle themselves. I vote for representatives to represent me. And it's really frustrating, Jeff. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant right now, but it's
rant
really
away. Go for it.
Yeah,
rant
it's
away.
Really frustrating when I get these emails and it's asking me to give money and it's just constant internal drama. I don't care about whether or not you're getting attacked. You're supposed to be a leader. Focus on stuff that matters so we can win.
He's a pussy. Sorry.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's just stop whining about it. Stop.
Here's the issues with the way that the Massachusetts does it. Massachusetts GOP does it. You need to focus on actual issues that voters want to focus on. And one of them is inflation of prices at the supermarket. And one of them is gas prices. Why can't we get even an infographic with a win red link underneath it and say, vote for us, fundraise for us, give us money, and we will help. It's really basic.
We are poised for 2022 to do really well.
Yes, because just off maps alone, redistricting, we are poised to take the House back. So why are we focusing on internal drama?
And we could do really well locally too in the state house if we wanted to, but we don't. But the infant is in charge and doesn't seem to get what needs to happen.
Yes, it requires you to be, it requires you to actually want to lead. That's the thing.
Here's the thing. Let's take a breath, because let's all temper our expectations here. We're asking, this would be like you asking me to go quarterback the Patriots, right? There are certain things I'm good at. I would not be a good quarterback at on the Patriots. If you put me in there, I'd get crushed. Okay? This is what we're asking Jim to do. He's just not capable of doing it, right? So we can yell till we're blue in the face, and we're going to keep pointing it out, obviously. We're going to ask him to grow up and be responsible and be a leader, but it's not going to happen because it can't happen because he doesn't have the skill set or the ability to do it. It just won't happen. So we can accept that. But what we can do is make it as uncomfortable as possible, keep calling him out and his idiocy, because at some point we're going to have to get serious. And who knows? I mean, the next election, I think, is January. I think yearly elections for chair. I believe so. I could be mistaken on that. They might be every 2 years.
Well, if that's happening, then you and I are doing a live episode from this vote.
Yeah, no, I mean, whoever, the next chairman's race, which I guess we're coming up on July, 4 or 5 months away, 4 or 5 months away in January. He won't have the votes anymore. Perhaps he just calls it quits, and he won't, but that's fine. We'll just chip away at state committee members. We will make sure that you are gone because you can't do your job. You're not good at it, and that's just the way it is. But I think, I'm glad you ranted, because it needs to be driven home how unserious this is. And there are people who want to take state politics seriously and are making the effort to recruit candidates and raise money and target specific winnable races.
There's real serious issues here, and we're focusing on bullshit and fundraising emails. What are you doing? The average American and the average Massachusetts voter, even if they lean right, want to hear about inflation. They want to hear about our rising gas costs. They don't want to hear about the stupid Boston fucking Globe. What are you doing? Just saying. They can read the nonsense in the Boston Globe. They can read it.
Yeah.
They want to hear about the problems with our country in these fundraising emails.
So 2 quick stories. One, good friend and I were chatting, and I was just like, it was like a week or 2 ago when we were in the flurry of this stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, this is drama at the Mass GOP. He's like, and he's not in the bubble, but he votes Republican and donates and stuff. He was like, oh yeah, I read about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm just, I'm in the middle of that. he's like, yeah, it's a complete shit show, and the idiocy of it. So like they're aware of it. Like people who aren't in the bubble of activists and involved in party politics and journos who know all the intricacies, but people outside of it are just like look at it and just have nothing but contempt and scorn for the stupidity. And then I was talking with another friend, a very conservative guy, as conservative as you and I, if not more so, but not again in the bubble, but a successful guy as well. And he's like, boy, Baker has really impressed me. I'm like he's like, and he's impressed a lot of people with the way he's just run everything. Like we know it wasn't perfect, and maybe the opening of businesses and all of this stuff, but when a guy who's that conservative, who doesn't align with Charlie on a whole host of different issues, for social issues and whatnot, is like, Charlie Baker impressed me, and boy, it was good. It was a good thing. I was like, I didn't even say anything to him. I was like, yeah, he did a good job, and that was it. Just like, holy cow, like,
yeah.
From
when your demeanor is basic,
yeah.
sane, and then you address actual issues, you're going to get support.
Right.
When you send out fundraising emails about yourself, you're not going to get the amount of money that you think you are. So when you see fundraising money go down the toilet, yeah, and your totals are just shit, then there's your problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just interesting to see that this guy, who theoretically would be, the target audience for Jim, but he's a serious guy, and to go, yeah, Charlie Baker's done a good job, and
yeah,
would deserve his, I'm going to give him my support. It's like that's just a bellwether. Like that's how far out Jim and the Debs and the whole crew are so detached from reality, and they just think as long as there's attention, as long as they're trolling, like as long as they're stirring shit and stirring the pot, then they're fine. Not so. You have a job to do, and you're not doing it. All right. That ends this episode of the RINO Podcast. Come join us on the Patreon, patreon.com/RINOPod, patreon.com/RINOPod. Caitlin, our media maven, has been doing the rounds of other podcasts, and we definitely catch her on. You were on Alice Shattuck's podcast?
Yeah, I was on Alice Shattuck's new project. She calls it the 1570 Project, and we discussed the left's perfect constitution, because she found this document, and it was kind of piecemeal of what the lefties always say, what they want their perfect constitution to be. So we discussed that, and then we kind of came up with our own, what we would add to our own perfect constitution.
So 1570 Project is the Twitter handle. So go check that out. Go listen to that episode. I did take a listen. It was a very good episode. What's the 1570 mean? I don't even know.
She didn't say.
Okay.
So I'm not quite sure. But yeah, no, she's smart and funny. So that was a great combo that we had the other day.
So go subscribe to Alice Shattuck's podcast, 1570 Project. I think that's the handle on Twitter. And we will catch you all next time. Thank you for joining us. RINO Podcast, patreon.com/RINOPod, only $1 a month. Subscribe. You'll get the exclusive content from Caitlin and I in an episode just for you. And that's it. Happy Father's Day. And
Happy Father's Day, guys.
Have a good week.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.